flying a helicopter identical to the one we have, which is a picture of it, right? This is what we have, a TH-55A, which is a military trainer. And I'll turn it over to Roger, and I think you're going to find it very, very interesting talk tonight. Go ahead, Roger.
Thank you, Dad. Let me get back here where we're supposed to be in today. First off, I want to thank Lloyd and I want to thank the museum. I'm not a veteran. I've got all kinds of relatives of veterans, so I'm not. And they have treated me here like I was. You couldn't ask for a more gracious bunch of individuals that after they found out that I'd flown a helicopter and offered to help them restore it. And like seeing this article in the Express, and it was like the computer just turned on. I've got to find out about this since I had so much time in the civilian version. So again, much appreciation to Lloyd and Denny Dodd for working on the helicopter, and all you guys that have been here, and you don't know how much that means to me. So I told Lloyd I'd be more than happy to talk about the TH-55. The military version of a Hughes 269A. This helicopter has quite a history. It's probably the most underrated helicopter the U.S. Army ever had. During its tenure in the Army inventory for training, from about when they were first purchased in 1964 up until the time they were removed from the inventory in 1987, they trained over 60,000 Army aviators. Majority of these were probably Huey pilots, Chinook pilots, OH-6 pilots. You know, they were the basic. They started out with training in the Hiller, the H-21, and some in the TH-13, which was an instrument trainer, but the bulk of the training was this rascal. And my contention, I've never flown the A, I just flown the C, but I really feel that anybody that gets proficient in that, they can fly anything. I know there's a couple of Huey pilots here that will probably attest to that. Here's the picture on the trailer out there. One of the ways you can tell the A from the C is the A's have a shark fin vertical stabilizer here. The tail rudder's smaller. I've never heard one. They said it sounds like a buzzsaw. I can believe it probably does. Helicopters are notoriously loud. That's why you wear helmets or headsets, because let me tell you, I've got some hearing loss, and I attribute a lot of that to the high frequencies of the tail rotor and the engine, not as much as the main rotor. But I found some interesting notes about this particular helicopter. They said when it went into service, the Army called it by they have a habit of naming helicopters for Indians, like Black Hawk and Chinook and Apache. This one was the Osage, and they said the nickname of Fort Walters was Sausage. Now, I don't know, I know a pilot that instructed him down there, I flew with on the police department. He said he never heard that. Probably has some other names too, probably not repeatable.
We call it the Mattel Messerschmitt.
Mattel Messerschmitt, exactly.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, this is a little fighter plane, if you got a little bit of time in it. I'm no expert. I don't want anybody thinking I am, but I'm pretty familiar with it. I've got just a little under 3,200 hours of pilot time in this particular machine, and about 3,100 of that is control time. And I can tell you what it will do, what it won't do, what it should do, what it shouldn't do. And I'm going to give you an example of something you might think about. All of you people here, if you're mowing your yard in a garden tractor out in the yard, there's something you do similar to what a TH-55 pilot does. And I'll tell you about that in a minute, but you think about that, something that you do that's similar to when you're mowing your yard in your garden tractor. It's quick, it would be the ideal trainer. The one probably drawback it has, if you want to call it that, when you auto-rotate, in other words, you simulate an engine failure, it is pretty fast. They tell you what you look between your rudder pedals is where you're going. That's right. It's like I always said, what you see between your toes is where the helicopter goes. Because because you go into, you go out to collective, and you go basically what's there. You go to 60 mile an hour speed and about 50 feet, you can leave that speed off and you come to about 10 feet in full pitch and you hope you're on the ground and not that hard. Mike could probably attest to that. But if you can do it in this helicopter, you can do it in any helicopter. The bigger they are, the easier they are. I've never flown anything bigger than a Jet Ranger. Jet Ranger is a very, very good flying helicopter. I've flown the, now this is a helicopter, the city doesn't have this. We wanted to go fly it. That is a, Chandra? Tell me what I did wrong.
We're the Olympics now. Rescue mission, rescue mission.
There we go.
Don't hit that button, just
Have to have an instructor. That's a demonstrator they brought to the city in 1984. They're trying to get us to buy them, and the pilots wanted them, but the city didn't. That's a Hughes 500E. That's a Hughes 300 on steroids. The guys in Vietnam that flew Roaches, the 086 500, straight 500. This is what it became later, and there's since then there's an MD 530 that is even better than that. But let me tell you, I got a half hour with a salesman instructor in that, and that was one nice helicopter. Getting back on the TH-55, the civilian model of that is a what they call a 269A. The helicopter like flew with a 269C model. They called it the 300 series. It's used everywhere, all over the world. Everything from pipeline patrol, timber patrol, agriculture with spray equipment. It's done about anything, and it's underrated. The biggest problem with it is as long as the engine doesn't quit, it'll do everything. But when it does, you got your hands full. I can tell you that from experience. But this was where our unit was hangared when I was on the police department. It's kind of hard to tell. I don't know who took these pictures. The red hangar here, right across the map was these hangars here, and that was one of those was ours. You can see it a little bit better next to the, I have a pointer somewhere, we did have. And like everything else, I don't know where to put it. Okay. The neat part about flying with the tactical air patrol out here, headquarters is downtown, about 6 miles away. It's a disadvantage when you have to go report the sector, but it's also an advantage where that's where the brass is. So we had our own unit. We virtually did everything. We maintained our hangar. Actually the Hughes, the pilots and observers did all the oil changes, all the lubrication on the Hughes. The safety mechanic, because he had enough stuff to do, taking care of other things. But what was neat, we had somebody growing up around airplanes. This hangar here is a P-51D that stayed in there. And any World War II aficionados of military fighter planes, that was kind of neat when he would taxi out. Other things that would happen when you're here, I got to see the Concorde land in the 80s, which is really something. Air Force One on a couple of occasions, the Secret Service would use our hangar and sometimes use our Jet Ranger to fly cover over motorcade from the airport downtown. Actually, not when I was flying with the helicopters. I got to see the inside of the Beast, the presidential limousine. And let me tell you, it takes two hands to open the doors on those things. They have so much weight. I mean, the protection, etc. But you get to do things like that you would never, ever see again, you know. I watched a Super G Constellation. Remember back in the 50s, the triple tail was the big arrow. Those take off one day on fire, which didn't make a lot of sense. We were coming in, and his inboard right engine was picking out smoke, and you could see flames. I hit the tower and said, the Connie that's on the run-up area got an engine on fire. He called the pilot. It was Rose Aviation. It was a freighter. And he kind of growled, yeah, we know. You know, and I started to shoot an approach. I said, this is not what is normal situation. And he said, road so-and-so, do you want to pull off and take a crack? We'll handle it. Pulled out on that runway and away he went. I could see orange all the way up. And, you know, he only had about 60 miles to go. But I mean, those are the kind of things you see that, you know, it's kind of neat to be out there. Got a ride to assess the citation one day when we were weathered in. They were taking one next door to test the door seals to make sure they handled pressurization. They said, anybody next door want to go? In the, you know, and flew around for about 20 minutes over Terre Haute, tested the door seals, came back. But those are like little fringe benefits when you're doing it. I was going to tell you our tactical air patrol, it made up anywhere from possibly 6 to 13, depending upon the way the city does their manpower table. They move people around, and as your fuel budget ran down, your hours ran down, your activity ran down, and then they decided you weren't doing what you needed to do. So consequently, our activity, we needed to get as many arrests and recoveries as we could. And some of the problems with that when we would make an apprehension, it would actually be the helicopter's apprehension. We would be carried as an assisting unit on teletype reports, which they would see downtown. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. We had one crew catch 2 bank robbers and a holdup, meant the whole bit, and we never carried it. Nobody knew, you know. This is what really hurts your activity, because they say, well, our reports show it. They get sent down later, but the teletype, that goes through all the departments. When I came out of recruit school in '68, we had 1,012 sworn people on the department, which is a pretty decent sized department. And consequently, you know, nobody, division to division to division, everybody wants theirs, and, you know, unless you've got brass that'll step up for your particular unit, you know, you can get shortchanged. But I was going to tell you, our patrol helicopters, the Hughes 300, we had 3 of them. That's a trainer. That's a converted military TH-13. That's actually the helicopter I learned to fly in. It was pulled back from David Motham Air Force Base in Arizona, repainted, the engine changed over, and that became our trainer. And it was absolutely a beautiful airplane to fly. Except the first time you flew it, when they gave you the controls, unless you flew a helicopter, you know, the instructor sitting there says, you got it. For a split second, you got it, and then it goes everywhere. And then all of a sudden, you got it, you know, it's right back to where it was. You want to try it again? Okay. All over the place. Mike will tell you that. And, but consequently, the 3rd time, he said, you want to do it again? I said, no. I'll wait until the training, you know, gets, you know, we'll do it the right way. But compared to a Hughes, that thing is a piece of cake. I mean, the Hughes 300 is not forgiving. You get behind it, you might die. I mean, it's that simple. At a hover, it can do things that you would have no idea, and you can't catch up with it. Other helicopters have that characteristic, but not this one. This is, of course, I mean, until you've been in one, you can't really appreciate it. But it'll make you a good pilot. In retrospect, when I couldn't even hold it over a spot, a year later, I can play tic-tac-toe in wet snow with a 300 using the toe of the skid. You develop touch, you develop all those particular skills. But it's a process of learning, and listen to your instructor. The first thing they tell you, there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, and there are no old pilots. And that's the truth. You try to do something that you're not able to do, a machine's not capable of doing, you know, somebody's gonna pay the price. But as far as the 300, there's another Bell 13, the guy with the curly hair on top. I had more hair than him. But that helicopter there actually got crashed in White River by another pilot, and they had to replace it with a Hughes. He got a condition called settling with power, which is something helicopter pilots have to be aware of. It's a condition that you get too low, too slow, and you can't get out of it. I had it demonstrated to me at 5,000 feet just to be on the safe side, and you get it in. And it's the scariest feeling you could ever have, because the more power you pull, the worse it goes. Then you have to literally dump the collecting, go over the nose and fly out of it, unless you got the altitude Hughes has that you have to be careful of, well, there's one of the machines I flew. It's a condition that's called ground residence. And any helicopter that has multi-blade system, more than two, and has either wheels or shock absorbers, and you notice the TH-55 and this, these are shocks on each of the points of the skid. They only have nitrogen in them. But if you happen to have a helicopter that has that configuration and a multi-blade, you can get this ground residence feature. And what it amounts to, it will literally, if you don't stop it immediately, it'll shake itself to death. There's parts everywhere, and I've got a picture of somewhere of a TH-55 that had that happen for forward. And the remedy to get out of it, first off, recognize it, and either get it off the ground right now or back on the ground. Because if it sits in that condition where it's right there, it can set it like that, and literally it will go all through that machine, and it'll shed parts like you wouldn't believe. But that's one of the things on a multi-blade system. This is one of the, actually, this is my favorite helicopter. These were taken about 10 years after I retired. It was stored and used for parts. That helicopter at that time was retired with 11,377 hours on it. I found out just yesterday the 3 Hughes that we had when they were retired out of service, they had a total of 32,000 hours. I've got about a tenth of that in those particular helicopters. But this is our Jet Ranger. I don't know if that's me or not, but that was taken downtown Indianapolis. That's Columbus, Ohio, where we took it over there to show it to Columbus Police Department. They fell on the right with me. That's the same Jet Ranger you see a couple of times back, the red, white, and blue. After I retired, they put high skids on it, added FLIR, repainted it. Looks completely different. It's the same helicopter. It's, as far as I know now, as of about 6 months ago, it had over 17,000 hours on it. It's the same helicopter they bought in 1968, the same time I came on the department. It's had numerous engines, repainted I think 4 times. Beautiful helicopter to fly, but you had no idea it had the airframe time on it that it does. This is a picture I found in a yearbook over there when they brought the Hughes back from Culver City, California. The person in the picture here, the civilian, that's Winston Churchill. That's the chief of police. My chief of police when I came home was named Winston Churchill. So it was always really fun to say, I've shaking hands with Winston Churchill, and you can win a bar bet with that. They flew the two, this one and another one, they flew them back to Culver City, California, which is a pretty good cross country. The 3 pilots that are there, this individual was my instructor, these were the other 2 pilots. But that's a long way to fly. You go from airport to airport to airport. They had taken a picture of our Jet Ranger, somebody built a model helicopter next to it. Just happened to find that picture. So I thought it was kind of representation that, there's Winston Churchill. After I retired, of course this is a Bell Jet Ranger again, they bought this. I gave $1 million to fly that. That's a Hughes MD 600. It's an NTR. It's a no tail rotor helicopter. They instead of having a tail rotor back here or an anti-torque rotor, the exhaust gases from the turbine engine are vented to the side to compensate for torque one way or the other. I talked to a couple of pilots that flew it, and they said it is squirrely. They said it's a lot more squirrely than if you had a regular tail rotor. But fast, I guess it was faster than that E-model that I showed you a picture of. That's the interior of the Jet Ranger that I just showed you a minute ago. That light right there is very important light. That comes on, your engine quit. Not to be, also with a beep, 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 beep sound, and those are the things you didn't want to hear. But now all the instrumentation, all these helicopters are digital, mostly, or a mixture. Since after I retired, they updated some of the avionics in it, but it was still the basic panel. Looks pretty spark compared to the new stuff, doesn't it, Craig? see what I mean about coming apart? That was taken at Fort Walters. I don't know if the pilot and instructor, what happened to them. At least they got a headache out of it. If not more than that, you're sitting right in here. The impingement area, what they call from the blade that protects over the canopy, the blade can't get to it. The canopy's out here, so I have no idea what happened to it. But that's why you're very, very careful with ground residue. Putting back to this picture again, eventually this is going to be restored to make it look just like what it was when it was flying for the Army. We're trying to find out through serial numbers off the transmission if we can cross-reference it to a serial that at Hughes helicopter, and then maybe go to DOD to see if they can show an inventory number where they might be able to see what the tail number is when it was flying in the Army. And it would be nice if we can do that, because that way there's a possibility some veteran pilots might have had training in that, and I'm sure they'd be thrilled to death that they could see a restored version. Getting back to what I was telling you about the lawnmower and the helicopter, when you mow your yard, you're out there, you engage your blade on your tractor, and you have to be careful. You throw it in, it might stall your motor on your lawn tractor. Same thing with the TH-55. It has a belt drive system. If you engage it too quick, you'll kill the engine. It has, instead of one belt, it's got 8. And it's electric touch. So you're flipping it up and watching, you're burying your needles to get it back to match your RPM of your, so as you come up, your blade and your engine come together. You hear the terminology, mirror the engine, that's what it is. So when you engage your mower on your garden tractor, you're doing the same thing as a TH-55 pilot, because it's the same concept. Your blades are down there, our blades are up there. That's a sample of one of our weekly activity reports we had that fell out. Every flight that we took on patrol, I got it over here, the observer wore this on their leg. It's a knee board. And he had a notepad on it. The observer in the helicopter took care of all the radio traffic. He listened to we had 2 police radios, and the aircraft radio, the pilot took care of that, but he also monitored the police radio traffic also. And of course, you're talking back and forth on an intercom, and and you get a chase going, and it can get hectic pretty doggone quick. The police helicopters were set up with a searchlight. The observer ticket handled it, the light, needless to say. But the pilot, his basic duty was to get over scene, put the helicopter in position where the observer could see. Now, the pilot's going to be seeing stuff too, but you're going to be flying. If your point's down there, you're going to get an orbit where you can keep the observer right on what he wants to see. Now, you get a chase or something going, it can get kind of hectic. You get radio traffic, you're back and forth. Sometimes I can remember being an observer or a pilot giving hand signals. You know, the pilot, come around, rather than talk. It's a 2-man team. The observer, as far as I'm concerned, is probably a harder job as a pilot, because he can't lose who you're looking for or what you're chasing. I'm going to give you a couple examples of chases here, but I don't want to take too much of the time, because I'm going to end up the program with showing you how to find marijuana, and I'm sure you guys want to know about that. No samples included. We had one chase that I called the Dukes of Hazzard chase. I and my observer were on the south side of Indianapolis, and a Marion County deputy jumped a stolen Bronco on 465, and they got off and came right at us, right place, right time. Deputy's about maybe a couple hundred yards behind him, and they're coming underneath us, and the guy decides to turn back, and he turns into a dead-end street. Well, he can't get out of that, goes to a field. It must have been horse weeds, so all you can see is woods. And here goes that Bronco, and about 100 yards behind him, here goes that big Mercury. And they come out across the road. Hence, I'm giving you directions of description that don't mean anything to you, but street numbers, etc. But to me, this is what I see. So he cuts off, goes in a lane, going due north into a public golf course, a sheriff's public golf course. I figured, we got him. He can't go anyplace. What's he going to do? Play through? Anyway, he got about a couple hundred yards on the Mercury, but this time he's barreling toward the clubhouse to the it's probably only maybe 8 foot wide at the bottom with maybe a foot of water. But from one side to the other, it's elevation of at least 20, 25 feet. It's a ravine. Well, about the time he comes up to that plane, he's on it. I mean, he's not slowing down. I swing out left as far as I can. There's no trees. I don't know where I'm supposed to be, but this is fun. And I want him to see me because, first off, resistance is futile. Pull it over. He just pours it on. Goes through a wooden barricade, cross that practice green, makes a kind of one of these numbers, and heads for that ravine. He jumped that ravine. He jumped he was at least 25 feet in the air and probably carried at least 30 feet. Here's this, and he actually made it. He landed on the other side, but he hit right on the berm. Didn't have his seatbelt. Wasn't a safe driver. Didn't have his seatbelt on. He hit that windshield. You can see the crack. Just boom. Falls back in the seat. He gets out, got blood running down his head. Does about one of these, like, where the hell am I at? And then takes off. And we're down about 50 feet by that time. He ain't getting away. This is neat, And we got cars coming in all over the place. And about 20 feet, and he's tackled by I don't know how many people. But one of the funny things about that, of course, I climb back up where I'm supposed to be. One of the funny things about that, my observer, who's great street cop and everything, but he had a really getting excited. And when he made that jump, he didn't have his radio in the intercom, and he said, "Hot damn, did you see that?" and the control dispatcher says, "Copter, will you check your microphone? Flip it down." But I couldn't help. Yeah, I mean, hey, how often do you get to see a Bronco go airborne across the creek? Just like that's why I call it Dukes of Hazzard. Let me give you enough. I got enough stories that you could be here all night, but I want to tell you a couple of kind of funny ones. We had a burglar run from us. We're in the jet Ranger. I was in the back seat as a driver. Everything was turned to the right place, right time. We just picked up a friend of mine at the downtown ramp who was going to fly around with us for about a half an hour. We get airborne, 2 burglars running from a house. Well, they're right on our nose. We see them. They split. Anytime you get more than one, you keep one. You don't care about the rest of them. You're going to get one. He'll probably give up the other one later. He goes up the alley, turns in, goes around a 2-story house, does all around trying to find to get in. Comes around, it has a enclosed porch, and he pulls the door open, goes on the porch. Well, at that time, I've lost sight of him, but I know he's inside. And we're circling over the top, and he's not coming out. He's in there. Get a car up there, say that's where he's at. Well, the first car comes in, he goes in, opens the porch, goes up, knocks on the door. They don't know anything. And he said, they don't. I mean, he didn't go in the house. They don't know what we're talking about. So the thing that sticks in my mind, we had one of the street cars at that time was a patrol officer that, for some reason or the other, didn't like helicopters. I mean, he made no bones about it. Nobody ever knew why. But he's on the scene. He's one of the guys looking. And he said, "You lost him, copter," real sarcastically, which right then and there, you can't get an argument on the air. But you want to get in an argument on the air. And I told the other cars he's in the house. When you went in that door, he didn't come out, unless he disappeared to thin air, he's there. So we circled to a while, nothing. So we have to go back at the end of the flight to get fuel. And just as we're touching down, they hit us on the radio, said, "Copter, we have that stuff." So they called in the information, and what amounted to, he went on that porch all right. They were doing remodeling. And on one side of this porch, they'd have a roll of carpet that they'd taken out. And that son of a gun had worked his way in the center of that, pulled his way up, and he's inside that rug. And the one district officer that's looking around just happened to be at an angle that, wait a minute, I see shoes. So it vindicated us. Of course, we knew he was there, but I always called that the thug in the rug. But there are so many runs that turn out. The neat part about it is you catch somebody before the crime's even been committed. I mean, before it comes out on the radio. I've had that happen at least 3 times, just on regular patrol. On a Saturday afternoon, look out, the guy walking across, and then he goes into a jog, and he starts to walk again across a vacant lot. Well, first off, a policeman's trained, you're observer. Probably 80% of police work is observation. You look for anything that doesn't look in place. And I'm watching him, I told my observer, the policewoman Lois, I said, hey, I'm gonna bring this around, and let you look at this guy, see what you think. Well, about that time, he looks up, knows we're looking at him, breaks into a run and dives into some bushes next to this building. So I said, I think we got something here, Lois. We come around, they put out the radio light, hold up alarm, or hold up just occurred, 16th, the Park Station. Bingo, we got it. So we call in cars, and it's really neat. They pull up, here's guys coming out, got their guns, pointing at shrubbery. They're both sides, one over here, one over here. All of a sudden, pop, here he comes up, got the gun, sack, money, the whole bit. I've had 3 that I can count, that I can remember, where they did that. Dive in the bushes. I told Boyd, I think they were actually gardeners as an extra job. But it seems like I've had them go up trees. You run somebody underneath and they disappear. Well, they didn't come out, bring a canine in, it's like somebody treeing a raccoon. Dog's down there barking, the guy's up about 20 foot in the tree. We know that's where he went. We had one ship hit a burglar that they had alarm, this was night, they had alarm on an industrial area, and they walked around, no entry, etc., but looked like somebody had tried. And the observer noticed that something didn't look right in the snow. There was about a foot of snow on the ground. And he could see with the shadow effect of the light, he could tell there were footsteps. And they went out about 30 feet and disappeared. So he called, said, the guys on the ground didn't notice it because the snow was kind of turned around. They followed those out there. They got a burger and they dig him out. He went and got in a snowdrift full of snow. So, I mean, people do really strange things. But it's neat when you're out there patrolling. If we didn't get radio run, we're trying to stir stuff up ourselves, find stuff. Something that you don't realize that we found, I don't know how many stolen cars I've recovered out of gravel pits. Because you can't see them from the bank, but you can see them directly overhead. If the gravel pits are notoriously clear, they may have a little silt, but you can have a car maybe 10, 15 feet underwater and you can see the silhouette of it. You can't tell the color until they get out, but you know it's down there. So then you call the dive team, they get a record, pull it out, and find out. It normally is going to be stolen. They'll steal the car, put old wheels on it, get it next to the gravel pit, chock the brake, and run the engine up, pull it, and out in the pond. We got one particular. They called in the information that for the stolen, it was stolen. I said, well, we got them both. There was one on top of the other when the divers went down. I mean, this was just a regular occurrence. Check the gravel pits, look for stolen cars. A funny thing on gravel pits, and I still understand this. One of the guys, they were flying over out on the east side of Indianapolis, an old gravel pit. We call it Texas Lake because it looked like Texas from the air, the shape of it. And we get occasional stolen car in the woods or whatever, and they send it down next to the water, parked a Jeep, and this guy's got a bucket, and he's getting water and mud and just throwing it, and they circle 2 or 3 times, so, he's surely not burying it, so they land it, because he didn't have anybody close by. He bought a new Jeep. He didn't want to take it off-road where his buddies, he was afraid he was going to get hurt off-road, so he was covering it with mud so he could drive up and say, man, I've been out there roading. These are the kind of things that you run into. Tell you another real quick story in the Jet Ranger. They got a run in the morning on the south side of Indianapolis in Marion County. That's when we were transporting before the minicopters got to town, which thank God they did because I hated to have to be. I wasn't an EMT or just basic first aid, and you got somebody in a stretcher next to you and you worry about something's going to happen. Take them, get them to the emergency on the helipad at Methodist Hospital. Well, they called for the helicopter to come get this guy. He'd been beaten. They found him in the morning, unconscious, bleeding, broken bones, etc. And they wanted him to transport using our helicopter to get to Methodist emergency. So they land. There was EMTs there already. They loaded him in. About a third of the way, the guy comes to. And he's had a revelation. He's got to confess to God. He just burglarized the place. Not only did he just burglarize that place, he confessed to 3 more burglars. So they come back from the flight, we got a burglar, we just cleared up a bunch of burglars. And, but he thought he was dying, and basically that was a dying declaration if you want to go to court. I mean, he thought he was dying, and the burglar Bob Pike is writing this stuff, and you get what? You get what? Stay away, I told my wife, somebody asked her, what did you do? And there's a line in the movie Forrest Gump that speaks to it. When Forrest is on the bench talking to the lady waiting for the bus, and he has a box of chocolates. He says, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. That pretty much summed it up. When you took off in a patrol flight, you might find a subject that committed suicide in the field. I actually took the mayor's wife in a patrol helicopter from the downtown ramp, actually from her house, went up and picked her up, brought her back on the 4th of July because the mayor had to go someplace. She had to go with him. You know, here's a mayor's wife and you're putting in a patrol helicopter. You know, she loved it. I just figured, oh my God, there's a career in any move. You know, I'm going to be doing something that's going to, you know, but you just never know. You get a run, meet a state trooper at the downtown ramp, pick up blood from the blood bank, take it someplace to emergency surgery. I've seen a cow jump over a car. Well, he didn't quite jump over a car. He put a lot of big footprints in the hood of a police car. A lot of city cops ain't been around livestock. They had one wrecked down on Raymond, and they got everything in except this one. I don't know whether it was a bull or a steer, but they were trying to hem him in with cars so they could get to him. Somebody's going to get a rope. He just walked right over the top of one of our police cars, and I can imagine the guy when he went back and said, well, hey, you spraying hoof marks. And it collapsed up. You know, this is a 700 or 800 pound cow. But, you know, I got memories I would never trade for anything, and you just never knew. Now, there were a lot of flights. You fly 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and I mean, your butt's tired, you're sore, you know, but the ones that really turn into something are something else. Now, I want to tell you one other one that I'm really proud of. We got to run, on a morning patrol flight, we were told, this make this a special flight, surveillance of a burglar. They can't catch him. A burglary detective, they said they'd been looking for this guy. They knew who he was. They knew where he wanted to go. They could never catch him red-handed. And he'd always miss, he knows somebody was tailing him. He had a particular route that he'd taken, and at that particular time, he thought there was somebody back. He'd just go home. Well, that morning, they told us what the car would be, where it was going to be at a certain time, and it was. And it was late November. It's really hazy. I only had about 1,200-foot ceiling, so I had to get right underneath it to stay as high as I could. We followed him. To make a long story short, he did everything they said, but then all of a sudden he heads north. And he gets up on the north side of the city. And if you ever watch a burglar work, it's something else. This guy was a pro. He'd just pull up in the guy's driveway, get out, you know, like they own the place, walk up to the door, knock, 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 knock. You see, ring the doorbell 2 or 3 times, nothing. Then you go around, side door. Same thing. Well, my partner said he's listening to see if there's any dog or anything inside there, if anybody's home. He did this a second time, about 3 blocks away from that, and of course we're staying high, staying out of it. I'm trying to stay under the clouds, and yet I don't want him to be my field of vision, his field of vision. He gets in the suburbs, on the north side, he pulls into this well, it's a pretty good sized residential area. The first house off the driveway is a single level. He pulls in the driveway, there's an overhang over the porch, he gets out, we lose sight of it, you know. We assume he's doing the same bit. Well, I swung out a little farther than I probably ought to, and come back around, he's gone. Thought, oh crap, we're looking everywhere. Now, I'm about 2,000 feet at the time. I'm pretty high, because I'm staying as high as I can. Come back around again. I asked Gary, you got him? You got him? We followed him this long, and all of a sudden said, got him. He's in the house. Exactly what he did. He went inside, the front door was locked, went inside, and pulled his car. He's loading this stuff. Okay? Hit for a deputy that's close. Nobody knows what we're doing, because we're out in the county now. Get a deputy, come in, he drives by, says he sees somebody peek out the window. Okay? He's in there. So I'm just standing, getting down to patrol altitude, which is about 500 feet. Get a couple other cars there, and they got him, you know. They got all the stuff in the car. We knew it was a good arrest. We didn't know how good it was. We get back to the hangar, said, yeah, we got him. Well, they've been trying to get this guy for months and months and months. And they say it cleared up between 300 and 500 burglaries in the north. He was a pro. So, you know, good deal. Get some recognition for the unit. A couple of days later, we're in the ramp getting ready to go. A photographer comes out from the newspaper, says, you guys stand next to the helicopter. You want to take your picture. What for? Well, you caught a burglar. Okay. You know, thanks, fine. know was, we seen, I had a newspaper article telling what we did. For all the stuff that we did, that we got put in for a departmental commendation, the whole 9 yards from the city and the mayor, the whole bit. Nobody could catch this guy. We got him first time, and our thing was, big deal. Call us for this kind of stuff. We can do this all the time. Just use us. You know, it's one of these things. If you're not out there doing it, you can't get your budget money, etc. So that's one I wanted to bring up because it's real to watch a guy in progress doing this stuff. You know, another thing on burglars. One of our guys, or the ship, caught a guy going down the alley, comes out of his house, takes his trash out, but he doesn't take his trash out. He walks by the dumpster. He just burglarized the place. So this is when you're flying around, you're looking for these things, you know. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it isn't. We lost a murder suspect one day because he couldn't get a ground car to check him. Didn't know it at the time. It was suspicious. We didn't know it at the time. And took a run about 10 blocks away from that. The guy that was involved with beating up somebody had a murder warrant. This was the guy. So we couldn't get a lazy, well, I shouldn't say lazy, but a lazy streetcar to get over there and check and find out why. He drove down the alley and backed into a light pole, you know, and then took off. Well, that's why we wanted somebody to check it. Had nobody at the time didn't know that. But you find stuff like that. You're flying. You see an engine block hanging from a doorway of an abandoned barn. Just strip the car. Nail it. You know, this is the kind of stuff. And I'm going to give you some numbers here. I know I'm taking your time. You probably got a lot of better things to do. But I was going to tell you something for interesting part, I think. Marion County, Indiana, where we patrolled in, is 403 square miles. That's approximately half the square miles in Pike County. The central part, basically the city part, etc., is about 225 square miles. And we're over that constantly. That's bigger, that's about Scott County. So for the idea that we're patrolling every night. And the 3,100 hours of patrol time that I had flying around, if you translate that to 60 miles an hour, which is patrol speed, that amounts to 186,000 miles that flying in that area. You know, that's why you learn everything. I looked that up, I could have flown around the earth 7.5 times. I could have went from New York to LA, round trip 33 times. But no, I'm all around Marion County for 186,000 miles in about a 10-year career of patrol flying. So you put things in perspective, and I never did it. At times when my wife said, how far did you fly? Well, I don't know, we flew 2 to 4 hours a night, you know, what adds up. So that's to give you the context of what you're doing in flying in patrol. But it was I was going to tell you one other thing. I researched my logbook and found out things that as far as mechanical difficulties, as far as the reliability of the Hughes aircraft in that 3,100 hours. I had 2 magneto failures, one of them at night. When you lose a mag, your engine doesn't run very good. You're basically losing half your electrical system. You lose 125, 150 RPM. Doesn't fly with the damage. You need to get on the ground, you can't hover it. Once at night, downtown, landed at what we call the ramp. The mechanic came out and changed it, the police car spotlight on it where he could change it. This guy was good. I had a fuel injector problem right after takeoff, turned around, went back and landed. I had a electrical failure at night, of course. About 14 miles from the airport on the north side of Indianapolis. You listen, every sound you hear in a helicopter tell you something. The alternator started sounding loud and all of a sudden quit. Well, we lost all the power. I had enough juice to talk to the tower. I told them I had electrical failure. They said, shut everything down. We know where you're at. You get close, we give you light signals to get you back in. By the time I got within 4 or 5 miles, it's pitch dark. That's why you have a flashlight in a helicopter. I couldn't even talk on the intercom. My observer just kept moving the light from instrument to make sure I could see everything. Got back and landed. Now, if we had an engine problem, it would have really been a mess. And I did have an engine failure. 1 of 3 in 32,000 hours for the Hughes. One while I was there, mine, and one about 4 years after I left. I'm going to pass this around so you can get some kind of idea on a couple things. This is a blade bolt. the blades on the 300, you want to pass around and look at it. That is the bolt that holds on the blade, plus a little bitty bolt that holds the trailing edge of it. This is a blade section of a Hughes 300. This retired after 5,500 hours. Now, look at that real close. You see any rivets? You see any bolts? For all you model airplane builders, that's glue. That's glued together. That's glued with a high quality glue, and those are assembled in an autoclave. They're basically baked. The only bolt on the end of that will be where the brake grip's attached to the hub of the rotor. The first time I seen it, I was like, oh my God, you don't think about that. Bell helicopters, for example, those are honeycomb aluminum. Some of the early Bells actually have wooden blades, but that is a Hughes 300 blade, and it's, that's a pretty darn good glue, that's I can tell you. This is a piston from a HIO 360 D1A. That's the engine in a Hughes 300. The TH55 has that same piston, except that the engine in the TH55 is 180 horse, and these are 190 horse. That one, I had an engine failure. Yeah, I ended up on the north side of the Indianapolis 500 between turns 3 and 4, just north of the track. I'll tell you something about training. I did everything right and didn't think about it. I shot what's called a 180 auto rotation. You always know where the wind's at. The wind's on my tail. Don't want it on your tail. The thing that still shocks me, it didn't cough, didn't do anything, it just went boom, and immediately down the collector, rolled into a tight 180 and hit back because there was grass behind me, a level spot. 30 seconds later, I'd been over a residential area. And it wouldn't have been the result of what I had. But everything worked. I did all what I've done, hundreds of them in training. Craig Rice sitting back there is a real helicopter pilot as far as I'm concerned, and he'll tell you what auto rotations are. And he knows what you got to be right the first time, particularly in this particular machine. But everything, the only thing, and it's kind of funny, I entered that auto rotation, and I remember saying to myself, by the numbers, by the numbers, by the numbers. And as I came through 10 feet, I thought, they're going to make me pay for this. That's the only other thing. Run full pitch well on the ground about 5 foot on grass. Now the neat part of that, I just did what I was supposed to do. The mechanic came out, evaluated the situation, and said, hell, I'll fix it here. He said, if we take it back to the hangar, I'm going to have to, it's a bad cylinder, I'm sure. So he starts disassembling stuff and finds number 3 cylinder is bad. The piston is the piston from that cylinder that passing around out there. You'll see pieces of a compression ring wedged in the metal. The top of that cylinder head looked like it had been attacked by a metal woodpecker. The walls of that cylinder looked like, I could have had that for a lamp, and I didn't take it. Looked like somebody had just scraped the living daylight. The redeeming factor of that, the lubrication ring held, which meant that none of that metal got back into the sump system on the engine. So after about 30 minutes of disassembling and checking, he said, yeah, I've got a built-up cylinder back at the shop ready for the next overhaul. I'll just change it here. And I called our sergeant was on vacation. Thank God he couldn't make a decision. He couldn't, well, I won't go into that. Called the captain. He said, what do you think? I said, the mechanic said he can fix it here. Do what the mechanic said. The alternative, go in, get a record, get a hook, put it on a flatbed. So he comes out, he pulls that cylinder once he got it off there, and that's not easy. If anybody's done working on mechanic, he's laying on his back on a big orange shop rack, cussing, and we're handling the tools. He gets that cylinder off, says, yep, that's bad. Get the good one, and he puts it back together. Now, how many mechanics can do that? He and I had one. He was from southern Indiana. He was a country boy. I'm from western Illinois. I'm a country boy. We spoke the same language. A lot of profanity, and we spoke the same language. And he put that back together. We spent about 4 hours doing certain RPMs at certain lengths of time to break the cylinder in. It has to be broken in at a certain RPM at a certain length of time. Just about dusk, we flew that out. And I told him, I said, okay, I'll meet you back at the hangar. He says, the hell you will. He says, if I can't fly in while I work, I ain't a mechanic. So he climbs in, and that is a mechanic. I'll put him up against any Hughes 300 mechanic in the country. And we flew back, and that's the end of that story. But I got the piston, and like I said, I could have had the cylinder, and it would have been a really neat land thing. But those are the kind of things that, you know, you can have happen. I was going to tell you something else. I know I'm taking up a lot of time. There's a lot of stuff I could tell you, and you're welcome to ask me questions. I'll try to answer them. I've flown this machine to 300 in snow and ice and ungodly heat and ungodly cold. And like I said, I'm not an expert, but I can tell you what it will and what it won't do and what I've done in it. And there's a lot of stuff that pilots would be interested in hearing about the, you know, the flight capabilities of it. It's not a fancy airplane, Hughes 300. It's a workhorse, it's not a show horse. It does what it was designed to do. And one last thing, I'm going over on time. I want to show you something real quick. You probably get a kick. I mentioned marijuana. See that nice, shiny, pretty, looks like little evergreen trees there, hidden in horseweed? That's marijuana. I went to a school in 1983, the DEA put on with about 40 other pilots from around Illinois and Indiana. They taught us how to find it. They taught us everything about it, how it's concealed, the whole 9 yards. They can grow that stuff. They're right there. If you didn't know what you were looking for, this is taken from about 400 feet. There's a plant, there's a plant, there's a plant, there's a plant. Now I've got a close up, hopefully if I can do this right. Oh, this is another plot. But I want to, that's the same tree that if you take it from the ground, this is the same tree. One of the sheriff deputies had me walk in with him to look at the plot because I was recording how it's grown. So you get some kind of idea of the size of that. That's the tree. They're taken from about 500 feet, flying down the river. Unless you know what you're looking for, you're not going to see it. It stuck out to me like a sore thumb. The other pilot from our department, when he had trouble finding it, looking at it, but it was, I told him, I said, hey man, this is mushrooming. This is mushrooming. This is what I didn't Pike County. This is something different. It's like you don't get to eat it. Well, I guess you could, but you don't get to eat it. This is a cornfield in Morgan County. You can't see it in there. This was a grow of about $3.2 million worth of marijuana. They would plant the plant in the rows with the corn, and where it couldn't be detected, and they would harvest it before the change in color. This was a professional deal. That's some of that part. They burned, I don't know how much they kept. If I can find it, they kept 2 truckloads for evidence. I think the total was 200, I wrote it down because it was always amazing. It was 200 and some odd thousand plants they found. And the street value was I think $3.2 million, something like that. But there was another, let me go just a second, let me go back. I had one other marijuana show. Let's go back to everything. Because I want to give you an idea size-wise. But most of the plants are 4 to 5 to 6 feet tall, and they're normally grown in groups of maybe 6 or 7. There's one, I walked in with them, and a deputy took a picture of me standing next to this plant. This plant here is probably 8 feet tall. The majority of the ones we find would be about head high. Actually, if you look at these leaves, the long, slender leaves, that's the good stuff. That sensitive, that's the high dollar crop. It's not like what they call ditchweed or hemp like marijuana. These were planted for a reason. You know, they're going to make money off of it. But to give you an idea on size-wise how big that is, and of course I showed you that before. This is one that stands out in particular. I've got other photographs that are harder to see. But the whole thing was always thought Christmas trees. That was always, I taught a school for a week in Johnson County. I don't know how many deputies I took off. They requested to the chief of police in our department to send me down there to train the deputies in Johnson County. They had access to an airplane. They wanted to be able to use it. And they had, they paid for the fuel for the deputies to fly around and look at. I taught, I don't know how many deputies. I wrote it down because it shocked me. I flew 27.5 hours, 4 days, 13 flights. That may not sound like a lot, but it's a lot, because you fly for 20 minutes, we left the thought in position, so we could show them what it looked like, and in the process of doing it, we found some more marijuana. But they did, this is a big deal, take thousands of dollars of this stuff off the street. So, I know I'm running over time with this, but I did want to show you the marijuana bit, and like I say, there's no samples. But this is some of the stuff that I did as a police patrol pilot.
How many years did you fly, Roger?
I was on the department 20 years, and I flew approximately right around 12 years I was out there.
12 years flying, and then you were a police officer for 20 years?
Yeah. And that's, 12 years I was out there, I could say it was 3,100 hours of patrol time. I probably had another 1,000 hours of observer time, riding, because a lot of times we switch seats on the 2 pilots, we take turns going back and forth. So I can tell you one thing about it, I knew that county, I knew the building. And there are no street signs up there, incidentally. So you have to memorize where you're going most of the time. And what looks like on the ground and what looks like in the air is completely different. I can get lost on the ground. Up there, I knew where I was going.
Did you carry a firearm as a pilot?
Yeah, we both carried, the pilot observer, both were armed. We had, at that time, 357. Carried 38 special ammunition, but they didn't want the 357 out on the street because of penetration power. And the observer would carry handheld two-way radio in case you had to. And I remember finding out Creekback went to get paid off his car. Never had to confront anybody, but you were both armed. And I had no shooting from the helicopter. That was rule number one. No shooting from the helicopter. First off, you can never hit anything. I had an observer actually. We're walking a further route to over to a state police, and then to take him into custody. And we're walking out before we caught him, and he was getting disgusted about the whole thing. And I was kind of flying low, easy circles around. He turned around and gave us a finger. My observer turned around in the seat, took his 357, and just pointed at him. That guy, you know, and he was that way until he walked to the trooper, and the trooper made him walk across that creek. We didn't need to do it, but I think that was a little penalty for the other one. But yeah, we didn't hear it down here. To my knowledge, no one ever shot him. Now, by the same token, speaking of shooting, I don't think, the only time I know that I was shot at was unintentionally, and that was by a police officer. And the only reason I knew that is because he told us. We're chased on a car theft. And we just came over the top of it, and the guy was really looking down the sidewalk, and the officer's probably waiting behind him, and all of a sudden he comes screeching to a stop with his hands up. I thought, man, that's intimidation. We got him to do that. Well, what we didn't know, the guy that he was getting away from cut like that and cranked one in the air. And he called the reports in afterwards, and I answered the phone. He said, "This is Officer so-and-so, did I hit you?" And I said, "What do you mean, did I hit you? Or did you hit me?" He said, "Did I hit you? I accidentally shot while you were right above me." So I said, "Wait a minute." Went out on the ramp, gave it a real quick inspection, blades and everything like that, to see if it ain't come back and said, "No, tell anybody, will you?" But that was a violation of departmental rules. The only time I was ever shot at, I don't know whether it was intentional or not, but it was some kind of fireworks. The night before the race, we're flying down the back stretch, or the home stretch of the 500, just shining the light around. You would never know how many drunks were wandering around on Georgetown Road. And we're shining the light around. One time we got hit with a searchlight that was 10 times brighter than what we had. I had somebody fire something, and I don't know whether accidental or intentional, but it passed by me probably 100 feet in front of me and exploded probably 100 feet above me. And you could hear it in the helicopter, you could hear or feel the concussion. I don't know what it was. It wasn't your average bottle rocket, I can tell you that. Because they shoot those down. You were maybe 600 feet just watching, indulging them in there, we're going to shoot a bottle rocket. This guy had a bottle rocket. And of course, discretion is the better part of valor. We left the area and went back to the city. But those are the only times that I know that anybody even came close, and I don't know what if that was. Now the helicopter pilots have. We never had to worry about those. They could put a pilot's eye out. And drones. Drones flying at low level. We are in never had to worry about that. We had to worry about kites, but you might not think about that. Flying a kite or a balloon with a wire, you can wrap it around the control tube of a helicopter or on the tail rotor and bring a helicopter down. But other than that, running into birds, which I had one bird strike, scared the bejesus out of the guy who was with me. Those are the only things that, you know, we contended with. But like I say now, I've seen some of these pictures of blinding, you know, a radar being laser. We never had that. So, well, anyway, I'm over my speaking time, and you know, I wanted to give you just a sample of stuff that I did. I'm probably the luckiest guy in the world. You know, I came back from dropping the mare off one night. We went to South Bend to drop the mare off at Notre Dame. And we're coming back, and it was one of these nights that you could see, you know, forever. And we climbed up to a couple thousand feet, and the pilot was with me, flipped on, we had an ADF, and flipped on and dialed in and found some 50s or 60s rock and roll. We're flying along there, just looking at the sight, and I'm thinking, man, how did I get here? Why am I here? How did I get here? I got a high school education. I grew up with, they didn't have indoor plumbing until I was in high school. You know, I'm flying the mirror around, you know, doing all this kind of stuff. God, what a country, you know. And it's one of those things I've never been able to do. Right place, right time. But if the opportunity is there, you know, Yogi Berra says you come to a fork in the road, take it. You know, so you know, I'm just thrilled that I am able to tell you some of this stuff. And apologize if I kept you from going any place. You got food, you know. Get that. But anybody got any questions or anything, I'd be happy to answer them. I hope I was able to at least tell you something about police and the Hughes 300 helicopter. So thank you very much for coming. And I didn't pass out.
Thank you very much. That was very entertaining. So we have samples of